This is Amber.
Hey guys.
All right, so Amber, like I said, is a very special friend of mine. She's going to tell her story today. Amber, if you'd like to introduce us or introduce yourself to us.
Well, I'm Amber. So me and Christie met how many years ago?
Gosh, like 11.
So we've been friends for about 11 years.
Yeah.
Our friendship has grown throughout the years. Definitely more so. We're both huge into fitness. So I think that's how we
really we bonded over that big time.
Friends.
Yeah.
So needless to say, that's how our relationship started and progressed from there. Yeah. Anywho, well, do you want to just jump into it?
Let's jump into it.
All right, let's do it. So I'm going to be talking, as Christy told you guys, I'm going to be talking about my grandfather today, which this is my grandfather on my dad's side. Not close with any of my dad's family, really whatsoever, besides his two brothers is who I've had in my life the most. So needless to say, I don't know a lot of history about my dad's family or a lot of their names, really anything like that, because he pretty much shielded me from that, as you will find out why. Needless to say, as I grew older, I've learned a lot, found out a lot, met more people along the way because I was curious. He never held that back if I wanted to know something. He was completely open about everything. I'll talk a little bit about my dad and how this whole story basically made him who he was, why he was the way he was, pretty much haunted him for most of his life, pretty much all of his life. So, okay, let me backtrack. I'm going to be talking about my grandfather, aka Moses Bess, which his first name is Joel Moses Bess. He went by Moses his whole life.
Question.
Yes.
Was anyone else in your family named after anyone in the Bible?
Yes. Moses named all of his children out of the Bible.
Okay.
All of them.
Okay.
Fun fact, as you know this, so my dad, his brothers, all had the same initials. Mm-hmm. Okay. J and B. So my dad was Jeremy Moses Bess. He got named after him.
Okay.
Which he did not ever fully write Moses on anything. Mm-hmm. So if he ever had to write his middle name, he only put an M. Mm-hmm. He never would write Moses.
So it already started way back then. He knew what type of person he was.
Oh yeah, from the beginning. I mean, so he didn't want to claim that name. Because it was, as you know, it was well known. Everyone knew who exactly Moses was.
Yeah, if you're in the Murfreesboro, Tennessee area, you know
his name. And
you know
even
that name.
Me growing up, my last name held weight, and I went to Kittrell Elementary School, and everyone knew my last name.
Girl, my mom had told, I knew about Moses Bess before you had ever even mentioned. I had no clue that she was related to him, but then she had mentioned to me when I was a younger kid, she was like, Moses Bess, and she mentioned the Bible names, but I had to confirm with you. She had mentioned that he named all his kids after the Bible. So that's crazy.
Even me growing up, everyone knew my last name, and I didn't know then why they knew my last name.
Right.
But as I went into older years, 8th grade, 9th grade, it was negative. Basically, I would get pulled over when I got my license for no reason, because they would run my tags. They would come up my last name. It was just random stuff like that throughout my life. So this has affected pretty much me, my brothers, my dad. I mean, anywho, all right, backtrack. So my dad's J&B. My dad's name, Jeremy Moses Bess. His brother was oldest brother, Joseph Michael Bess. He was a few years older than my dad. And then the youngest of the three was Jeffrey Matthew Bess. Mm-hmm. So that's what he did. I don't know why, the rhyme or reason to that. But fun fact, he married their mom. They all have the same mom. So their mom was Joyce Marie Bess. Mm-hmm. So she even had the same initial, which was crazy. So he had them first. Very, my dad told me a lot of stories. Very hard childhood, like abusive, neglected them. Their mother, was in the picture, but after like they kind of split up, they stayed with their father. I don't really know why or how, or I'm sure drugs played a part in it. Later on, I did have a relationship with my grandmother. She was a great grandmother in my older years, and I knew her a lot more growing up versus my grandfather. So I don't know why she really wasn't in the picture when they were younger. I don't know. Anyways, so he had them still, did whatever he wanted to do. He met another woman, Deborah was her name. He had 2 more children with Deborah, which is Mariah and Modesta, which is their middle names. They went by their middle names. I do not know
what their first names were.
Their first names.
But it probably started with a J.
It's a J. I do know that. Had them. I'll go into the story of Mariah is going to be a main point in this story. I'll go into that story more in detail later. So after he had those 2 children, he had 2 more children, which was Miranda. Her first name was Jessica. I do know that. I knew more, I had more of a relationship with her because she was younger. She was closer to my age. And then he had a son named Thor. He's the only one out of all the children that do not have the same initials. I don't know why. And
I'm going to speculate.
I have a theory of why.
Okay.
But I don't know if it's true or not. It's just my theory and like what I think.
I want to speculate that he don't belong to Moses.
No, he's Moses's.
Okay.
But these 2 are by a different woman.
Okay.
Her name was Sandy, I think. She is also passed. So she had these 2 children. Thor, his first name is Lucas, and Lucas Thor Coleman. He is the only one that also, I think, did not carry the last name. I want to say he was in prison at the time that he was born. Why he got custody of Thor later on, don't know. He is, like I said, he's the only one without the initials. Here's my theory to that, or why I think that. He always had this saying, this creepy saying, Moses did. He was the 7th son of the 7th son of the 7th son. Okay? He would say that, and he could never die, is what he was meaning by that. Thor is Moses' 7th son. So 7th child, he was a son, that's who he had. Maybe that's why he named him different. I don't know.
Yeah, you know what? I wonder what Thor means. What if we looked up that definition? What if that's why? Like, what if we looked up Thor and it makes sense?
But me and Thor are actually the same age. So we went to school together. We even went to high school together. I remember me and Thor being in kindergarten together. And
you're like, this is my uncle.
Yeah, it's my uncle. It was so weird. And so I remember us being in kindergarten, and I'm jumping ahead, but I just have to tell this. My dad came to have lunch with me, and the reason he did that is because that was the day Moses was going to prison for a very long time, and he had to go and tell Thor, like, hey, your dad is not going to be there when you get home. Broke his heart. So that's how kind of Thor found out that he no longer had a dad as well as a mom. But he was adopted by Miranda and Thor was adopted by Moses' sister, Mildred. She took both of them. Okay, so history of Moses. Had all the children. When my dad was growing up, this is probably before Miranda and Thor's time. Very abusive. Moses was in a biker gang. People was always in and out of their house. He sold drugs. Moses had one of the biggest drug busts at the time in Rutherford County history. He would travel to Mexico to get drugs, bring them back, and sell.
Was he like in with the Mexican cartel, I wonder, or
I wouldn't be surprised. Cartel? So there's a story about Mexico when he went to go get drugs. In Mexico, my dad actually told me the story. He went to Mexico, of course, to purchase his drugs. He killed a man in Mexico. And story be told, that's when he sold his soul to the devil, was when he was in Mexico. He killed a man, and he did go to prison in Mexico for it.
And how long was he in there?
However, I'm not quite sure how long, but however, that's when he sold his soul to the devil. He got out of prison and made his way back home. And there was a short amount of time where my dad and his two brothers that I told you about, they went to foster care until Moses, I guess, got out of one of his prison sentences again. And whenever he came back, he got them out of foster care. So they were in foster care for a short period of time. So Moses was in a biker gang, drugs, people always at the house, in and out, all the time. That's how they grew up. Moses would disappear randomly. The boys would have to like fend for themselves. They would have to, there was a time my dad told me, he was gone for about 3 weeks, up to like a little over, like 5 weeks total. So him and his brothers took a tent to the creek area they lived near, and lived in a tent to fend for themselves. And that's where they caught fish, and that's how they fed themselves while he was gone. Like literally 10-year-old kids.
Like feeding themselves.
From
the creek.
From a creek. They learned at an early age how to.
Like they were survival mode.
They had to
did what they had to do.
Take care of themselves. Wow. Like canned foods, like whatever they could find. That's how they survived until he got back and did what, not what any dad would do. He didn't take care of them. Until he got back and I guess gave them whatever else to survive. There was a story that my dad told me as well whenever he was younger. Probably a lot of people don't know this. I don't know if my dad would want me to say this, but he's not here to tell me otherwise. So one of his biker gang, friends would come over or whatever, and my dad, apparently one of the guys had touched my dad inappropriately. And he was one of the regulars or whatever. He would always be there. My dad went and told Moses, and he said that, he's like, okay, I'll take care of that. And my dad was just like, okay. It was never talked about again, never mentioned again. And he's like, I never seen that man again. Never seen him. Story has it that Moses murdered him and either fed him to the hogs, or he had hogs on his property. He also had sinkholes, lye, everything you need. Either fed him to the hog or put him in one of the sinkholes. So he owned his property, and he named the property Moses' Mountain because it was on like a hill. It's on Richland Road.
Yeah.
Out in the Kitchell area.
Yep. I can remember passing by that when I was younger. My mom literally was like, that's like where Moses lives. Moses Bess. It was just, it's so crazy because she didn't even know Amber. I didn't know Amber back then. And then just to know all of this like tied together.
Everyone knew where he lived and what he was about, basically. I mean, my dad would say he would show up at the school with like his cowboy boots on, and he had like spurs. and you could hear him walk down the hall, and everyone was like terrified of him.
Oh my God, I bet. Oh, that gives me like goosebumps thinking about it. Yeah. And not in a good way.
No. Like, everyone was terrified. And people would tell you, they would, like, he would more so, like, brag about his murders and tell people, you know, he didn't care to admit, like, oh, yeah, I killed him. They were scared to say anything because
he's been killing people.
So much power then. And, like, they felt like, so they weren't going to say anything against him. Mm-hmm. Anywho, so they basically fend for himself. They never seen that man again. My dad thinks he was either disappeared by one of the two. Later on, you know, he had the other kids, and I'll get into Mariah's story. So Mariah was his daughter, and in Kittrell, she made an accusation one day. This is the first time he went to prison. This is how I said, you know, my dad had to go tell Thor that, hey, he's going to prison for a long time. Mm-hmm. And that being because of this incident, Mariah had made a statement saying Moses had molested her. So, as she goes to school and says this, they do a check and they take her from the home. He goes to jail. So later on, Mariah comes forth and says, hey, he really didn't touch me. I just wanted to go live with my aunt because I didn't want to live with him anymore. So it's like, okay, so did he or did he not do that?
Yeah.
I'm kind of like in between on this. And I think so was my dad, because he literally killed someone for touching.
Right. So why would he be a pedophile as well?
So it's like, did he or not do it? Like, do you believe her or no?
Right.
So I don't know if he did. It's kind of like
this is like allegedly this is what happened. Yeah, so we're gonna throw that in there in case.
Gray area for me.
Yeah.
Okay, so he got out of prison. So she went back to live with Moses. Well, she made an accusation again. And said, you know, hey, he molested me. And they're like, okay, well, maybe she got scared the first time. We don't know. She never took the accusation back this time. So he went to prison. I forget how many years. After everything said and done, after the accusation.
And how old was she at this time? Sorry.
I want to say she was 13. 13.
That's my dog trying to get dog or cat food. Sorry.
I want to say she was about 12 or 13, maybe. I could be wrong. I don't know.
So she was, on into the teenage years.
And I was 6 years old when he went to prison.
Okay.
Now, whenever I was born, my dad did take me around him. Like, I knew him. I knew who he was. I knew. I would go to his house. I would go to Moses Mountain. Like, I had a relationship, I guess you could say, with him. Mm-hmm. I remember him always getting me porcelain dolls for, like, my birthday or for Christmas. I remember the last gift he got me was, you remember, like, the teddy bears you could color on and, like, wash them and, like, come clean and, like, you could do it again. I remember he got me that, and he'd always get me a porcelain doll. Needless, I still have them. Like, I still have the ones he got me. And what's funny is my brother, like, they would come in my rooms and they would always be creeped out by these porcelain dolls and say, like, they felt like they were, like, watching them. I was like, they were probably freaking cursed.
There's no telling.
I mean, they probably were
I cannot believe you still have them and
Yes.
how you don't have, like, a paranormal activity or some shit going on in your home.
I mean, they're in storage. They're not in
Okay, thank God. It's bothering somebody else's stuff.
Yeah. I mean, they probably were cursed. I don't know.
Lord.
So I did have a relationship with him, and, like, my dad would, take me around before he went to prison. My mom, whenever she would tell me stories, that whenever she would go over there, I remember her telling me this story. He wore rings on every single one of his fingers. Mm-hmm. Every single one. And he would do this, like, thing, like, he would crack his knuckles And he would just like shake his hands and like they would all crack. And she's like, I just thought it was the creepiest thing. She's like, I always got like weirded out being over there. And she's like, I told your dad, never leave me alone with him, ever. And my dad would even tell my mom, like, don't be alone with him. Like, I don't want you alone with him. She would always cover her drink. She's like,
she really didn't trust him. Like, can't even leave your drink out.
And my dad told her not to. Like,
okay.
He will put something in your drink. Don't. Like, yeah.
I cannot imagine how your mom felt, like, marrying into this fucking family.
Oh, she was terrified at first.
Did she know the extent of it before she married your dad?
No.
Like, no. So he never, like, really talked about it?
My mom and him met when they were 15.
Okay.
So, and that time my dad was living with his mom.
Okay.
And they met in Spring Valley. Do you know where that is?
Mm-hmm. Oh, wait, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's where my mom and dad met, was in Spring Valley. That's where my mom's mom lived and his mom. So he was living with his mom at the time, and that's how they met.
Okay.
But, so he would go later on. My mom had me when she was 17. They met at 15. So when I was born, like, he still had a relationship with his dad. But he would always tell her, like, don't be alone with him. Don't leave your drink unattended. Like, you know, be cautious, pretty much. Mm-hmm. And my mom, she's always got super weirded out by him. And she would say she's seen him with a Bible. Now, this is after he sold his soul to the devil to get out of Mexico. She said she's seen him one day with a Bible, not touching the pages, but turning them without touching them.
So he was like, did he have his hands over them, or was he just like have them at his side and the Bible pages were just flipping?
He was holding it.
He was holding it underneath. Okay. Yeah. And the pages were just flipping.
Turning.
By themselves.
Yes. Yes. My mom told me this. Like, why would she lie to me? Why would she lie?
Right.
She's like, I don't know what it was. She's like, maybe he did have this, like,
power, so to speak.
I don't know. But everyone always got, like, a weird feeling around him. And what's funny is, so next door, my mom would, you know, they would walk around Moses Mountain, like, whatever. Next door, they went into this man's barn, and I forget the man's name. Mom would know it. He had all these skulls and, like, stuff in his barn, like, hanging up for decoration. And my dad was like, I think this man killed his wife. And Mom's like, why do you think that? This is Moses' next door neighbor. He's like, why do you think that? And he's like, I just know. I just know he did. Okay, fast forward to 20 years later. Where more, what is it? Where you test, DNA testing.
Okay.
Came out. He killed his wife. So my dad was right. He murdered his wife. So that was like a fun fact where, like, he told my mom this when they were 17 years old, or probably before, that he killed his wife. And, like, my dad, right before he passed, my dad was like maybe 40 at this time. Mm-hmm. And it came out that this man was going to prison for killing his wife back then.
So let me make sure I have this right. So your dad,
next door neighbor, he knew that this man.
Your dad knew the next door neighbor killed his wife? Okay.
Yes.
But how did your dad know that? How could he possibly have known that?
I don't know. Maybe he knew, like, had heard things, like, growing up, like, maybe he was abusive. I don't know. But my dad called it, and he was right. He's like, yep, I told you. I knew it.
Wow.
Anyways, so I guess that's not the street to live on.
Right.
Where was I at in the story? Oh, my mom meeting him and whatever. She was creeped out by him, and I fast forward a little bit. I remember him going to prison. So me, my brothers, my mom and dad were at the fair. Moses shows up and is like, hey, I'm going to prison. He gives my dad, like, his jewelry, pretty much any valuable belongings that he had. Gave my mom some stuff, gave us some stuff. I don't remember what it was.
And how old?
I was 6 years old.
Okay, yeah. So we're back to the prison for the.
So this is when he's
supposed molestation.
This is when he's grown. My mom has 2 more kids. She has 2 boys, my brothers, and they meet Moses. They come around. They go to the Moses Mountain, whatever. So I mean, we think everything's everything. We think he's a normal grandpa. I mean, he gets us gifts, whatever. Right. We don't know any of this because my parents aren't telling us this at this age.
Exactly.
So, later on, so he goes to prison. I was 6 years old. And I mean, everything's fine. I didn't question it. I didn't know that's where he was going. He's just like, hey, I want to tell you bye. Like, we didn't know where he was going. We're just like, okay. So, a few years after this, my dad kind of opens up more after I get older and asks questions about, like, him, I guess, and my dad's side of the family.
Now, are you during this time, are you hearing things from, like, people at school about why he's in prison or anything? Like,
no.
What brought on the questions?
No.
Like, you just were...
I was just curious, I guess.
Just curious.
Like,
you just happened to think about it one day and you're like...
Yeah, I was just curious, like...
Where did he go?
Well, I wasn't necessarily asking about Moses. I was more so, like... I mean, after this time, I had a relationship with my grandmother, but we didn't see her a lot. And I know my dad had siblings, but we didn't see them. Miranda was taken. She got put in a foster care. We never seen Miranda again. Ever.
So, still to this day, you haven't seen her?
I've never seen her a day in my life.
Wow.
Nope.
I wonder...
I do not know.
What happened to her? Like, if she...
I don't know my aunt. I know she had contact with my dad, like, later on when she became 18, because she wasn't allowed to have any contact with him before. I want to say she reached out when she was, like, 18 to her siblings, but I've never met her. I've never seen her. I have met Modesta. I met all of my other uncles and aunts besides Miranda. I've never met her. Besides, like, a picture that my dad had. So, I, am wondering about everything. Because I do know Jeffrey and Michael. Like, they were always around. Michael was always in prison, really. But I knew who he was. I knew him. Jeffrey, more so, was always around. That was my uncle. That's the only people I knew in my family. And then, I want to say, as we grew older, that's when my dad started shielding us more. Like, we didn't know my dad's family. We didn't see them. We didn't go to their house for Thanksgiving. Like, it was always my mom's side of the family. And I guess he was just trying to, like, take us away from that. And because, I mean, he knew the weight of, like, I guess the Bess name. And he didn't want us growing up that way. He didn't want us having that. So my dad was everything, like, that Moses wasn't, pretty much.
Yeah.
Whenever he had children, he's like, this is what I'm not gonna do.
Yeah, he's learned the hard lessons before he even had to, like, he's like, I don't want to be anything like my dad, so I'm gonna be the complete
pretty
opposite.
Much. I mean, he was very abusive to them. He was, I mean, neglectful. Like, you don't leave your children for a month to fend for themselves.
Right.
Where is DCS in this? Like,
that's what I'm screaming. How did they...
Was that even a thing then? I don't know.
Right. You know what? It may not have been, because even, like, we grew up different the way kids are growing up now.
DCS on you like that. No?
Yeah, for sure. My mom had DCS called on her one time.
You spank your child out. You're done.
And it wasn't even, like, being abusive or anything. It was just, they said that she had a messy house. And I remember when they came there, and it literally wasn't a messy house. Like, they were like...
Who called them on her?
Yeah, I don't know. My mom speculates it was my aunt who we stopped talking to. But, the house wasn't even messy. And the lady was like, I'm sorry, I wasted my time coming here. I literally don't know why. Like, my mom, she's very particular. First of all, she probably went crazy after that.
She probably threw a fit.
She probably punched somebody. I know she ain't listening, but Mom.
You cray.
You crazy, okay. But yeah, like back then, you know, even we grew up where we could be at home alone. Like I remember being at home alone when I was 7.
Yeah.
Like that was a thing.
I was watching my brothers.
Right now, my kids, no, I didn't even start leaving them home alone until they were teenagers, literally, because it's just different now. Yeah. And back then, and her dad's, you know, back when he was a kid, that was way before us.
Probably wasn't a thing.
Yeah, they probably just...
It's like, oh, well, fend for yourself, you're good.
Yeah, exactly.
But clearly, no, they weren't. They had a lot of trauma and stuff that they had to work out when they're older. I mean...
Oh, for sure.
All of them. I mean, my uncle's on hardcore drugs. Like, for a long time. They battled with that for a long time. Like, so much trauma, seeing stuff and dealing with what they went through. I don't even know probably the half of what they went through.
Right. You only know, like, what you heard.
What he told me.
And that's not even everything.
Yeah. A smidge of what he had to deal with.
I can only imagine.
I mean, needless to say, my dad... Back to the abusive part. I don't know if a lot of people know this either, because growing up, my dad was so ashamed. He was 3 when this happened. He was placed in a boiling hot tub of water, and he has scarred from it.
Oh my God.
Pretty much melted off his skin. They had to do skin grafts for my dad. So
how old was he? Did you say 3?
3 years old, I want to say. His legs, so he was sitting kind of like this, you know, with his legs down.
Yeah.
So his shins all the way up to his knees, and then part of his little belly, completely burnt. So, you know, he told me the story later on. He would always...
did Moses put him in the bathtub?
I want to say it says mom.
Really?
That's why him and his mom had a rough relationship. I want to say he always blamed his mom for that.
Oh my God. I mean, I could understand if she didn't realize how hot it was, because, like, literally, I love my water boiling hot, and I don't even realize it's boiling hot.
Maybe he was, like, unattended at 3, and
maybe he turned it on.
I don't know. But needless to say, he was scarred for life from that, and he struggled with that trauma till the day he died.
Wow.
You would never see him without a pair of socks, ever.
Aww.
I seen him twice my whole life.
Every single time you look at your scars,
that's what you're thinking about it. Like,
yeah.
I never seen him without a pair of socks, and maybe twice my whole life, and that's my dad. Like,
yeah.
I don't care what insecurities have. Like, I'm gonna love him the same, but he had scars all over his legs, had to do skin grafts to repair that. His belly, so his belly button, he really didn't have like a belly button. You could see where it is, but his belly was scarred.
When he got the skin grafts, he lost the belly button?
No, I think it was just scarred, damaged so bad.
That it didn't look like he even had one at all.
Like it was just... I mean, you could tell he has one, but it's not like
you could see like an indentation maybe, but
not
just
like a
not
belly button.
Okay.
He lost... The reason why he was never seen without socks, he lost 4 of his toes due to this. Mm-hmm.
Holy shit.
So he never wore sandals, never wore socks. My mom told me whenever, like, growing up too, until he met her, he was so insecure. He never wore shorts. He always wore pants. He went swimming in pants because of this. Like, this had a major, major effect on him.
Wow.
And when I seen him, like, growing up, I seen his legs. He clearly got over some of that insecurity. And he wore shorts, like, all the time.
Yeah.
But I seen his legs, and I was like, I didn't think it was, like, that bad.
Yeah.
I mean, you've seen burn victims, and you see how their scars looked. And
yeah.
I mean, you could tell, like, something happened, but I didn't think it was that bad. But anywho, that had a major effect on his childhood, like, major. And maybe that's why he felt like he always had to be tough and strong, is because that's the childhood he went through.
Yeah.
And made him into an amazing dad, very strong dad, taught me how to be strong. Like, I would not be who I am. Probably for the stuff that he went through.
Yeah.
But it definitely had an effect on him mentally, physically, emotionally. He probably needed therapy really bad. But that's also like, then that's looked down upon. Like, you don't go to therapy, you don't go to a psychiatrist, you don't do that thing.
Oh, so, yeah. It's that the boomer generation, and some of the Gen X too.
But no, I think he would have benefited from it, and he definitely needed to let that out. I feel so bad, like he never got the chance to do that. I still think about, like, and I know you haven't touched on this yet, so I'm not gonna like let it out of the bag just yet. I'm gonna let her tell that story. But I just remember seeing like your dad's picture in the newspaper article about Moses, and he was crying like on the witness stand or whatever. Okay. Like he was like sitting like this and like crying, and I just like felt, I could literally feel his emotion in that picture. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So sad. Yeah, so I guess let's get into like, I guess the juicy good stuff.
The more juicy good stuff.
So that's basically my dad's childhood, my childhood, the history of it. I probably didn't touch on everything, and if my family does hear this or gets to listen to it, if I'm missing something, forget something, or I'm wrong about something, tell me, and I want to fix it or add something to it.
Yeah, and you can always email us too, like if you can't get a hold of her for whatever, or if you don't have her information or whatever.
But I'm gonna post it, share it on my social media sites. So I do have my dad's family like on those sites. So if they do get to listen to it, let me know.
Perfect.
Gretchen, I know you will. Gretchen, if you do listen to it, Gretchen is my dad's first cousin. Yes, Mildred, Moses' sister that adopted, is Gretchen's mom.
Okay.
Mildred is Gretchen's mom. So okay. She adopted the two kids.
Okay.
Which I will touch on this because I think it needs to be said. Miranda, the one that did get adopted, she passed away due to a drunk driver.
Was that the one that was in Murfreesboro?
231.
Okay.
She was hit and killed by a drunk driver, and my dad was still alive for that. That had a major effect on him. So it also had a major effect on Thor, because that was his full-blooded sister, and they had went through everything together. So I think that's part of the reason why possibly he's in prison now, and Thor's my age. So Thor's not getting out of prison anytime soon. Thor became abusive. He had a child, not a good father. He completely went the opposite way of what he should have. He did not carry the Bess last name, but he wanted it. He got it tattooed on him. He wanted to uphold that, and he wanted to be the bad figure. He wanted to carry on that bad name and
the legacy of
be this Bess. Hard guy that he wasn't, and he should have never done that. He should have went the other way, because now his son will not have a dad either. But that's just kind of touch on the younger siblings are no longer really in the picture. Miranda passed. Thor's in prison, not getting out anytime soon. Nor does his son that he had want anything to do with him. So there you have that. So let's get into, I guess, later on in life about Moses. We'll go in depth about, so he did his prison sentence. He was going to get released for the molestation charge, I want to say 2011 or 2012. He was going to get released for this. Up until the day Moses is going to get released, you have a ton of people coming forward to say Moses killed his second wife, Deborah. So now we have people coming forward saying this. So, Rutherford County, did not want to let Moses go. He had given them hell from the day he was able to until still now. Mm-hmm. And they did everything in their power to get custody of him. When they did the drug bust, thrilled. So they did everything in their power to keep him. And if you had the best name, unfortunately, Rutherford County would do everything to get you in prison.
Mm-hmm. They just assume that you are you're
a product of your raising, basically. Mm-hmm. And that's what they wanted to, take that off the streets, basically. Mm-hmm. So, and I mean, my uncles didn't do a very good job of that either, because they always gave them hell and were always into trouble and, just living up the legacy. So, mm-hmm. Moses was going to get out of prison. So people come forth saying, hey, he killed his wife, which was Deborah. This is Mariah and Modesta's mother. So her death was ruled as a suicide. He called the police the day she died. It was ruled a suicide. He said that she shot herself.
Had she had any indication of mental illness prior to this? Depression,
not that we know
anything?
Of. Not that we know of. I mean, we had married him probably, but...
Probably got anxiety like a motherfucker too.
Not that we know of. So, and my dad and his brothers loved her, because this was a mom figure that loved them, that did stuff for them, that took care of them, which they did not have. Right. So they loved her. And the day she died, it was hell for them.
Mm-hmm. Now, how did she supposedly commit suicide?
She shot herself.
Okay. With what type of?
With a revolver, apparently, just like this.
Okay.
Okay, so the story that was told when the police got there was that the kids were in the living room. Moses was in the bedroom with her, and you hear Moses say, "No, Deborah, no." And then they hear a gunshot. That is the story. That has been their story.
Since day one.
For all these years.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what they all said. Jeffrey was younger, so my dad always says he didn't really know. But Michael and my dad...
Were they like teenagers?
Yeah, they had a different story. Which later on, I point blank asked my dad, did he do it? Whenever this trial came about, they opened up this trial that when he was going to get out of prison, they opened this trial for the murder. And this was an ongoing trial for years. From, I guess, 2012 to 2017. They were trying to indict him for this trial.
Now, did he stay in prison during this time?
Yes, they didn't let him out.
Because of it being a murder charge, they had to,
They did not let him out.
Okay.
Nor they were going to do everything they could not to. Mm-hmm. So I asked my dad, whenever all of this came about, because I'm seeing all this, and my dad has told me stories now, and I'm older, and so he's like, I was like, did he do it? Tell me. And he's like, yes, he did it. And I was like, okay, well, why or how? I thought, you were in the living room, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And, he told me the rehearsed story or whatever, but he didn't tell me in detail of, how it went down or, what happened, but he's like, yes, he did it. So, and after my dad said he walked into the room, her brains are on the ceiling, in the crib. This is the girls that he had with her. Their crib. Blood in there. Horrific scene. Okay.
Wow. I mean, that alone needs therapy.
I mean,
fuck.
Walking into a bedroom and seeing this, seeing your dead stepmother blood everywhere, her brains everywhere, and him standing there. So when the police get there, the gun is in her hand. They rule it as a suicide. There's not very much, I guess, forensic
evidence at the time.
I don't know why they didn't go in detail. I guess because it was cut and dry. Like.
And what year was that she committed suicide?
86.
Okay, yeah, I'd say the DNA game wasn't up to par on that.
Yeah, 86. So, and then I was born in 91. So, do the math.
Yeah.
How old my dad was. So they see this horrific crime scene, and then like my dad's out after. I'm like, well, how did Moses act? Everything's everything. Like Moses. Okay, so Thor and Miranda wasn't born yet.
Mm-hmm.
Remember this. So Moses brings another woman on the back of his Harley to her funeral, which is Miranda.
This bro didn't wait.
Miranda and Thor's mother. Okay?
Okay.
So she brings this woman to the funeral, which is now Thor and Miranda's mom.
Mm-hmm.
So did he have any remorse? Probably not. And then, get this, he kept her jawbone in a jar in his room. Yes, he kept a piece of her jawbone.
A whole ass jawbone. Imagine going into his room and just seeing
creepy.
Imagine going into anybody's room and seeing a jawbone in a fucking jar. Like, are you even gonna know what that is when you look at it? Like, but then when you see teeth on it, you like, okay.
But, I mean, that was
that's somebody's jaw.
And he never repaired the hole in the ceiling.
Did he even clean up the brains? I'm just curious.
I think so, but he literally just put like a poster or something, I think, over the hole. Yeah.
Wow.
So,
so that he could just pull that poster down and just stare at it?
I don't know.
Lord.
And he would always, people would say, when this trial was going on, people would finally came forth and was like, he would brag about killing people, but we were so terrified to say anything against him. I don't know, he had some hold over these. People were so fearful.
Yeah.
So the trial, went on for years. My uncle, Michael, he went and testified during the trial, and said that he did it. He said he seen her. The day that Michael testified, Moses put a KOS on him. If you don't know what that means a kill on sight. So Michael had a kill on sight above his head. Michael had to go into protective custody because Moses was going to get him killed. And did he have the means from prison? Probably. I don't know. I guess he was still in his gang. I don't know.
We're talking about a very powerful man here, y'all. Yeah. Seriously. You think it, and we're talking small town Murfreesboro. It's not small town anymore, but small town Murfreesboro had a very powerful man living here.
It's small town. If you're in the Kitchell area, you know everybody.
Everybody knows everybody up there.
So my uncle had to go in protective custody, and then my uncle was in and out of jail. They could not be in the same facility.
So your uncle, when he said that he saw her, did he act did anybody actually see the act happen?
Michael said that he did. That's what he testified.
He said that he actually saw Moses do it.
Kill her, yes.
So Moses probably walked up to her and put the gun up there and just blew it off. And then put the gun in her hand. Wow.
But Michael, yes, said he seen it. Now, my dad was subpoenaed to court, meaning he had to go and testify on what he seen that day. Mm-hmm. Okay. This is before he knew Michael was. This is before Michael made his testimony. They were all subpoenaed to go do this. Mm-hmm. I don't know if Jeffrey was because he was too young. I think it was just the two older boys. My dad was like, no, I'm not going, which you can't if you're stupid.
Yeah, you gotta go.
So he basically told them, he's like, I don't know. I don't remember anything. I don't know anything. I'm not going. So that's my alarm. He told them, like, I don't know. I don't recall. I'm not going to be any help to you, basically. So they were like, okay, well, you just come. He went. They didn't make him get on the stand because he was not any help. But he waited outside the courtroom at the doors and watched from there. My dad was terrified of Moses.
Yeah.
Like, terrified. He was not going to go on the stand and testify against him.
See, he knew better,
Even
but like
he
Michael
knew, that
Michael
he did it.
Didn't care. He was like, no, I'm gonna take him down.
Well, and then a lot of people speculated now. As I said, Michael was in and out of prison too my whole life. They speculated like, oh, Michael's in trouble, so he's going to testify against Moses and maybe get some charges off of him.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Michael said that didn't happen. I don't know if it did. I don't know if it didn't. But anywho, so he went and made his testimony and said that he seen him do it. And the verdict went on, like, people, I want to say some of Deborah's family came and testified against him. And finally, after years and years of this trial going on, the verdict came down to he was guilty. From everyone coming forward, the stories they told.
You would think they would want to run a forensic test, at least on the gun. Like, I imagine
the gun was at the site. So I have a few articles that I want to read too, about the trial and stuff. A photo. I do have a photo of the gun. Hold on. Now, so he only got charged with this murder. People say he's killed way more. Probably can count. They also asked my dad to go to Moses Mountain, show them where the sinkholes were. My dad's like, I don't know. He didn't take them out there, but my dad knows exactly where they are. That's where he grew up. My dad basically wanted no part of Moses' trial because he was so fearful of his life. And he had us.
I mean,
so
the guy puts a KOS on Michael, so
his son.
He doesn't care.
Even one day, like, my mom told me Michael and Moses were into it in the driveway, and Michael's like, cussing at him, whatever, and Moses was like, you better get off my property, I'm gonna shoot you. And Michael's like, no you won't, but he got the hell off his property because Moses would have shot him dead.
Oh Lord.
So let me see if I can find the picture of the gun, and then I'll read a few articles about it. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, well, here is my uncle on the stand during his testimony. Can you see that? Put it up there. In which you guys can do your own, like, research, and if you want to know more in depth, if I didn't cover something and you want to know it, ask me. Or
I'm telling y'all, this needs to be a Netflix special.
Okay. Oh,
this needs to be a docu-fucking-mentary.
But there's so much more, like.
Yeah. Dude, they need to do a whole thing with you and your family. Like, the family members that don't care to come forth and stuff like that, They should do, like, an entire documentary on this shit and hear everybody's shit.
And which you can look this up. This is all public. You can just...
Yeah, these are public records, so it's...
Google his name, like... And this is just strictly on the murder, though, of what he was charged with. This is, like, it goes into no other detail or anything about him. That is Deborah, the one he has the charge for. Let's see if I can find the gun. I know I've seen it. I'll show you a picture of Moses, too, if you want to see him.
So I wonder if they ran any, like, fingerprints on the gun and stuff.
I don't know. I mean, her fingerprints were going to be on it.
Yeah.
Even if they did, because he wasn't dumb. He put it in her hand.
Well, yeah. He would have wiped it off and then put it in her hand. But I wonder, did they even, like, see any gunpowder residue on him, or...
I don't know. I don't know, because you know how certain guns...
gunpowder residue is going to get, if you're shooting a gun, it's going to be on, I mean, that's what I've seen from all the true crime stuff.
Yeah.
Or any of her blood on him or anything like that, you know?
Well, I'm sure he, like, washed his hands, or, like, I don't know if it would have been on her. They probably
and
didn't
if they
do it on
walked
her.
in and just saw it, like, it was probably like a whole Kurt Cobain thing. You know how supposedly he committed suicide, and
oh, no,
they just automatically assumed.
Okay, so here's the murder weapon, and this is a picture from then. It was taken. It's a revolver.
Okay.
So under that picture, that's Moses during the trial. There's people. So that's just her showing the murder weapon and stuff.
Was that his attorney, or was that like the district attorney or something?
I want to say that was Deborah's. Like, they were trying to indict him. So that's Moses now.
Ooh, hold that closer. He's a scary motherfucker.
Yeah, so that's him now.
Yo.
I would be... And I mean, I may even, like... So, me and my brothers have actually talked about... Because he's in prison in Tennessee.
Is he in Murfreesboro?
Prison? No, he's not in Murfreesboro.
Like Nashville, I would imagine. Right?
No, I'll tell you.
Okay.
In this article... So, he is not, but me and my brothers have actually talked about going to, like, visit him and just talk to him and ask him. Not because we want a relationship with him.
Yeah.
Because I don't. That grandpa's ship has sailed, and he was I love my dad to death, and he was a piece of shit to him, so.
Yeah.
I feel.
Your dad would never want you to have, like, that, any type of relationship like that.
But I even asked my dad before he passed, like, how would he feel if I, like, went to see him? He's like, oh, I don't care. I mean, you're curious and you want to know where you came from. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
He didn't care.
Do you think that Moses would be up for talking to y'all and answering any questions?
I don't know. I'm curious. I may write him and ask.
Mm-hmm.
My uncle, the youngest brother, Jeffrey, he actually does keep in contact with him. He writes him. Jeffrey says that he didn't do it.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's why he keeps in contact with him, or he was the youngest, so he doesn't really remember.
Or maybe he's scared too, and he's just going along with it because he also probably, like you said, he was young and didn't know, but he's also scared to say if
anything
he does
else.
think. Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, his brother had a KOS on him. Why would he?
Yeah, I know we're not allowed to be in the same prison. I don't know if that's rules in prison, but I know
it may have just been because of that whole
trial going on.
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
know, but they were not allowed anywhere near each other.
You know, they say that, like, the inmates now can, like, email and shit. I wonder if you could email him.
I don't know.
I was listening to Lindsay Chrisley's podcast, and she was talking about how her, you know, if anybody, I'm sure people know who the Chrisleys are. I'm sure you know who the Chrisleys are. Okay, so you know how, like, Todd and Julie are in prison right now for all that tax shit that they got into. But they email Lindsay, and Lindsay said it's, like, different between her stepmom and her dad. Like, sometimes it's a few days before she gets her stepmom's email, even though, like, it's delayed a few days, but, like, her dad's will come through within a few hours. But they have it set up on a system where it's delayed so many hours or days.
You know, we're paying for this.
Taxpayers be paying for these prisoners to be emailing.
All right, so I'm going to read y'all this article real quick. A cold case murder that ended with the conviction of Joel Moses Bess in Murfreesboro will soon be back in court. Bess maintains that his wife committed suicide and he did not kill her. 68-year-old Bess, which he is 74 now.
Okay.
So this was 2017, whenever this was finalized. 68-year-old Bess is due in a Rutherford County courtroom on Thursday, 2/23/17. District Attorney Jennings Jones told the news. The convict is currently behind bars at the South Central Correction Facility in Clifton, Tennessee. So,
okay,
I'm guessing that's where he still is. I could ask my uncle because he talks to him. As it stands now, Bess will be 94 years old when he's eligible for parole. Now, I'm kind of thinking he's going to make it to 94.
I was about to say, being someone that sold their soul to the devil, he is literally going to make it past 94, and this motherfucker's going to be out.
Christie, I forgot. Cancer. So, 2 years ago, I want to say, he was diagnosed with cancer. I don't know what type, where, or anything like that. Family member told me this on my dad's side. He was diagnosed with cancer. Didn't have long to live after that. Said it was pretty aggressive. Well, rumor has it, went back to be checked, and he's just fine.
Cancer miraculously gone. Was literally showing up on tests that he had it, and then it was showing up that he had nothing.
He's just fine.
Now, everybody knows, like, yes, these testing, sometimes that shit does really happen. Like, I watch Grey's Anatomy. I ain't trying to be a medical professional or nothing, but I'm just saying, watching Grey's Anatomy, they're like, sometimes things show up, and then other times they're, like, gone, and it's just, you know, it's you don't know till you get in there, till you, like, open up someone and find out sometimes. So, yeah. Now, we know that shit happens.
I don't know.
But it's just weird. Just saying.
We don't know, but he's fine now. Still in prison. Still kicking.
I wonder if he has like a posse.
Oh, it's also
like a little prison gang.
I don't know if this is true or not. It may be that he was castrated as well because of the molestation.
Like another prisoner did it to him? No. Or like the prison did it? Isn't that inhumane?
I don't know who does that. I don't know who does that.
I feel like that's...
Do they take him to the doctor and be like, you've got to castrate him? Because I don't know. I have no clue.
Is castrating cutting the whole dick off or just the balls? Or both?
I think it's all.
How's he gonna pee?
I don't know. Is it his balls? I think it's just his balls. I don't know.
Get off of this podcast and start Googling what is castrating.
I'll have to figure that out. Okay. This is Deborah's tombstone. She was born November 23rd, 1948, died August 19th of 1986. So that's when she was murdered. A Middle Tennessee man has been released to life in prison in the 1986 death of his wife. So he has to serve a minimum of 23 years before he's eligible. Mm-hmm. So he will probably...
Isn't that 2035?
I don't know.
Was it? You said it was 2017?
Yeah, so 23 years from then.
From 17 or... Wait, I thought it was 2012. Wait a minute. I thought you said it was 2012 that somebody came forward.
Yes, that's when it came forward. But this is
when... But 5 years later,
this is when it indicted. This is when he got guilty. Okay. Guilty as charged.
So 23 would make it like 2040. Okay.
He was sentenced Friday in the death of Deborah in the case that was originally ruled a suicide. The investigation of the fatal shooting was responded in 2011 it was reopened, in 2011, and the Rutherford County Grand Jury indicted Bess in 2014. During his trial, that's when it started.
Okay.
Was 2014. During his trial last June, Bess denied that he shot his wife and she shot herself. His adult son, Michael Bess, testified. He saw his father hold the gun to Deborah's head. He said the gun went off when she tried to move it. So.
But see, that's what makes me, this is just my speculation. To her head, wouldn't you just say her chin if she was... This is where it went. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I'm making a description, I'm going to be
maybe that's where he started. He's like, I'm going to kill you. And, the wrestling, and that's where she got shot.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Could possibly be. Possible.
But that is what he is in prison for now. There's a lot more that I want to find out that I would love to go visit him and see if he would answer my questions. Or... interview him, kind of?
Yes, girl.
What's the guy that does the interviews of the prison inmates? What's his name?
What show?
I'm a Killer and stuff.
Oh. Isn't he British?
Yeah, what's his name?
The British dude? I can't think of his name, but yeah, shout out to that dude.
Yeah, I want to go.
Girl, I would love to go.
Do
If
an
you get
interview.
to go, they probably wouldn't let me because I'm not family.
I mean, they might.
You think? Girl, because I would go with you. We could come up with questions together, and we could
do like a background check. All you got to do is like a background check and stuff. And,
okay.
I mean, go to prison.
We need to look into that, and we need to go ask him questions, and we need to write down his answers and
I know,
stuff, because I'm sure we can't record it or anything, so obviously, but we could like report back.
But I mean, how do other people get in prison and like?
How does I'm a killer get in there? Okay, like we can just come in there.
Like,
and be
hey, we're doing a TV show.
Exactly, it's called like Barbie in Miami Barbie or whatever the fuck I call it.
We're gonna
Malibu Barbie.
Malibu. We're gonna get y'all famous, so just
two Barbies interviewing.
What's up? All right.
two Barbies interviewing bitches.
Yeah, so if y'all have questions, I'm gonna do a little bit more research and see if I can bring you some more info.
Yeah, if you have questions, email us at socialsanitypodcast@gmail.com. You can also direct message us on Instagram at socialsanitypodcast. Amber, thank you for taking the time today to come in and talk about this. I'm telling you guys, this shit's crazy.
I've never told this story, so I'm like probably jumping all over the place, but it's a lot to tell.
It is. Well, hopefully a lot of people will watch this and take something from it at least. If not, it'd be something to, as my saying goes, pop your puss to if you're really into true crime stuff. I'm just saying.
Literally.
Literally.
It's close to home.
Yes. Okay, so thanks for watching, and thanks again, Amber. Appreciate it. We'll have her back on another podcast. We plan on having her back as a special guest again sometime in the future, so be on the lookout for that. This podcast is not going to run on the platforms. It's going to be YouTube only, so just to let y'all know that. But
maybe she can figure it out later.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't do that technicality stuff like Ashley does. So
maybe Ashley can figure it out.
Maybe she can. Ashley is the brains of the operation. I'm just literally bringing like, what is it, brawn? There's brains and brawn.
You're not good with sayings.
I'm not good with sayings.
Don't try.
That means thanks again, guys, and have a good weekend.
Bye.
Bye.